We've all failed at reaching a particular goal. We've all experienced rejection, and we've all had things we wanted or desired not go our way. Normally, we hold on to those emotions and we allow those emotions to keep us from becoming the best version of ourselves. Today, Jonas Salzgeber will explain the practical Stoic philosophy that helps us reframe our experiences and thoughts so that we may embody confidence and calmness, even in the face of the toughest of times. Welcome, Jonas.
Hello, David and Carlan. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for being here.
Yes, we're very excited about this conversation. I have been interested in Stoicism for a few years now, and I think it's just fascinating. So yeah, it's a really good approach to life in my book, and I'm really excited to hear you sort of expound a little bit and tell us your thoughts on Stoicism. So
great.
Jonas, I think a big misconception when you think about Stoicism or Stoic, especially for people who have not heard of or looked into the Stoicism philosophy, is that Stoics suppress or reject all emotions, striving to be an unfeeling or indifferent human being. Is that true, or is there another truth?
Yeah, there's definitely another truth in Stoic philosophy. I mean, just thinking about this, I wonder if people really believe, that this philosophy that they really aimed at being an unfeeling being and not having emotions at all. Because if you think about this, that you don't feel anything, it's terrible and life, it wouldn't be worth living. Yeah, feeling sad and not feeling anything wouldn't be something you'd aim at, and it's not something the Stoics would have aimed at, from my perspective. And if you read, for example, Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, it's all about how to deal with these emotions, how to tame, rather than suppress them, how to deal with them in a way that's, more supportive when you can remain true to yourself despite feeling these emotions. So I'd say it's much more about taming this inner wolf I write in the book. So we want to be feeling. We don't want to let the feeling take over. So we do or say things that we'd rather not do or say, that we couldn't speak of with honor, that aren't true to ourselves. So the Stoics, it's true that they say that strong negative emotions, the passions, they sometimes get in the way, and they put reason a bit on the throne. For me, a little bit too much. So they put reason up really high and the emotions much lower. But maybe it has to do with how they lived back then, and they might be lived with, tyrannical emperors who had people killed because they felt like it. So that's probably why they put reason up so high. But generally, it's about still being able to live true to yourself, to your values, despite feeling these emotions. It's about emotional regulation, basically. So you don't want to have a heart of stone or not be feeling anything, because this life would suck and wouldn't be worth living at all.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. So I wonder if you can just add a little bit of context for us before you get into more of the basics of what Stoicism really means and how to incorporate it into your life. Can you talk about how you first were introduced to the concept of Stoicism, and what was it about this philosophy that really grabbed you and just made you want to spend so much of your life dedicated to these concepts and ideas?
Yeah, sure. So it was in a phase when I was reading loads of books, and I stumbled upon Stoic philosophy first through Jonathan Haidt's The Happiness Hypothesis. But I didn't really, I get hooked. I didn't get hooked on this philosophy because he's written only a little bit about it, a couple of ideas. And then it was Ryan Holiday's book, The Obstacle is the Way, which is based on an idea from Marcus Aurelius that what stands in the way becomes the way, that basically your challenges are here for you, they become your way, and you need them in order to learn and grow and all these things. So it was Ryan Holiday's book, The Obstacle is the Way, that introduced this philosophy to me. And it was a couple of ideas that really fascinated me. For me, I had this understanding that you can be really calm and, present despite the stormy sea around you, many things going on and there's stressful events and challenges in life, but you can stay with yourself, clear-headed and moved maybe internally, but not so much externally. So this is the image that I had that I found intriguing. And then as I was reading so much, and I'm a reader, I don't listen to podcasts so often. So I read lots of books, and yeah, it just resonated heavily, with me. It's like, that's what I hear from many people, that, I have been a Stoic all my life, but I just didn't know about it. So, and maybe in a way I was similar, that I had already a couple of ideas, in my life that maybe originated in Stoic philosophy. So it really resonated with me and still does today.
And the people that you have conversations with about this practical Stoic philosophy, and I keep saying practical because I can't think, I'm sure there are other philosophies out there that people use modern society, but I'm most familiar with Stoicism. And to me, it's a very practical way of looking at yourself and the world around you. So that's why I keep saying practical, because it's so useful. In your conversations with people about Stoicism, do you sense that they were looking for something, or is it that they just found it and it became interesting? The reason why I ask that is there's so much frustration, angst, anger. You think of road rage, you think of the person at the counter at the Starbucks being rude, or whatever it is. There's a lot of emotions running high. And Stoicism is a way to reframe some of those things, or at least how you respond to those things. Do people see Stoicism almost like as a way out, or is it just more of like an academic pursuit for them?
The way life works sometimes is a bit mystical to me. I find that books or ideas get brought to you in some mysterious ways sometimes. So I find that many people, they find my book, or they find other books about Stoic philosophy, or they somewhere read a quote or something from Stoicism and it speaks to them. So I find that it happens, you could say, by chance, or by life giving you maybe something that you can find valuable. That's a bit how I see it, because I like it this way. So I'm not sure if people are really looking for new things or how to deal with emotions, and they will stumble upon this philosophy. Maybe it happens more natural. I find it gets brought to you by life in a way, or by a friend, or that you find it somewhere, and then you start reading and it resonates, and then you dive deeper into the topic and find it really valuable. Yeah.
So one thing that I am curious about is whether you have found, either in your own life or with people around you, that Stoicism is helpful in alleviating issues like anxiety, right? I think, at least in the United States, the prevalence of anxiety has absolutely skyrocketed. People are on medication for it. They need therapy for it. And, it's a very real problem that people face in their lives. And it certainly seems to me that it's become more of an issue in our modern society, where we are constantly just bombarded with advertisements and social media and just moving pictures of every kind. I think the pace of life has become much more frenetic. So I'm just curious if you have seen Stoicism help with that, if you've seen it help people maybe break some of their addictions to social media. Yeah, any thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, so I would say it definitely can help you with these things, and, stop you from spending so much time on social media, for example, because at its core, I find that it's about conscious behavior, the Stoic philosophy, because it makes you think about what you do, and it makes you think about your values, and whether, there's some consistency between the two, between what you do and between who you'd like to be, or the things that you believe to be important. And then you will find, or many people will find, that spending time on Instagram or social media isn't something they really value highly. It's just something that happens because it's just the easiest thing to do. And if you're not so deliberate, if you're not so conscious with your behavior, that's just the easiest thing you will keep on doing and watching, a ton of series, and you will just be a little bit mindless with your time spending, I'd say. And with Stoic philosophy, you are more conscious with how you spend your time and what you do. And so I think this definitely will help, because it makes you think and it makes you self-reflect about your values and how you want to live and what's important to you and what not so much. And you want to express your best self, right, in every moment. And so it makes you a little bit more conscious of what you do. And if you think about trying to express your best self, you're probably not going to spend 3 hours doing certain things that you're not really proud of. You'd rather read a book or talk to people. Or I definitely think Stoic philosophy can help you, spend your time more consciously, and it will certainly alleviate certain problems that come from, behavior patterns that might not be healthy and might not be so consciously chosen. So there's definitely a value in this philosophy when it comes to changing behavior.
If you were to characterize 3 main themes that you think is the most valuable in Stoicism that we can apply to our everyday lives, what would they be?
Yes, so what comes to mind is the Stoic happiness triangle from the book, obviously, which is my visualization of or giving an overview of this philosophy. And the goal of the philosophy is basically to flourish. The Stoics use the word eudaimonia, which basically means you good. Daimon is your highest self or your soul. So you want to live in harmony with your highest self. You want to flourish in life. That's the goal of this philosophy. And then the triangle comes with 3 corners, obviously. And the first one would be living with arete, which is, for me, absolutely most important one. It's arete means virtue. So you want to live with virtue, but it's much more, you want to express your highest self in every moment. So that's basic, right? Trying to express your best self moment to moment to moment. And the Stoics have the core principle that's really helpful getting there. And the core principle is that there are things that are within your control and things that are without your control or beyond your control. And you want to focus on what's within your control and try to make the best given the circumstances. So for the Stoics, it doesn't matter so much what happens, but what you do the given circumstances, which brings us to the third and final corner. Take responsibility. For the Stoics, you are responsible for your own flourishing in life, because living with arete, expressing your best self in every moment, that's within your control. And this makes you responsible for flourishing in life. And I think this concept of responsibility is actually really empowering, because it gives the power back to the people. And I think it's one of the aspects or one of the reasons why people enjoy this philosophy, because they feel, hey, I can be responsible for how I feel and how I am, basically. So that's the 3 things I would go with is express your best self in every moment, focus on the things you can control, and accept the rest as it happens. Acceptance, big part there. And finally, you want to take responsibility for yourself. Yeah.
And all 3 of those things combine to, let me see if I can say this correctly. Eudaimonia?
Yes.
Eudaimonia.
Eudaimonia, exactly. So again, that's the goal, right? You want to flourish in life. It's flourishing. You are supremely well. I imagine, like a flower that flowers. So you can flower. I believe that we human beings can flower in our own ways. If you are really well, David, if you are shining bright with joy and happiness, you're full of love, and you walk down the streets, people are going to see your flower, basically. You're flowering, and that's when you are really well. And of course, that's one side. And as the flower, nor will you always flower, but there's also, winter season of rest, right? And you can also be well in this or in the seasons when you don't flower. But generally, that's what I imagine, when you're really well, you shine so bright with your joy and love, and that it's just overflowing and it's sharing naturally with everybody around. So that's my ideal goal, that at least in the flowering season, I'd like to shine so bright that I'm a gift to the world around me.
I know we're just looking at each other through a webcam, but as soon as you signed on, you had this great smile. And so it's causing me to smile. And Carla is usually happy all the time, but she's smiling extra flowery today.
Perfect.
So we thank you for that.
Yeah.
And that's your point exactly, I believe.
Yeah,
Exactly,
I think I was going to ask a question and I think you just spoke to it in a way, but I'm curious if you have any other thoughts on this. So when you use the phrase best self, I would imagine that some people out there listening to that are thinking, how do I know what my best self is? Is it just something that's unique to me? How do I figure that out? What's the best way to express the highest way of being me? Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
That it can be challenging, I would say, to figure this out, because we don't happen to spend a lot of time with ourselves and asking these questions like, who do I want to be and what's truly important to me and what are my values? But with Stoic philosophy, that's where you're going to go to use self-reflection as a tool, really, to get to know yourself for one thing, and asking yourself these questions. And so you will get to know, or you will get there over time. You can ask yourself what you find admirable in others. So when I'm spending time with you, I will say, I like your humor, for example. I like your directness. I like the way you are, in a way you're so considerate when you speak of challenging things. And so you can go there, like, what do I admire in certain other people? And maybe I would admire this in me as well. But it's within each of us, the secret is, I would say, if anything, it's spending time with yourself and trying to listen to yourself and really try to connect, because the connection is there, but really try to connect to yourself, and you will know. And obviously it takes time. If you haven't been connected much with yourself, then it's going to be much harder. And that's why it's also important to go offline, really, and spend maybe time in solitude or with writing, and or just trying to feel yourself. So feeling is really important, because that's how your soul or your best self or your highest self is gonna show itself. And yeah, I hope this makes sense, but it's really about getting to know yourself and also asking these questions. And it might not be easy, because you will need to be true with yourself, but you want to be true with yourself and say, I did all these things that I might not be proud of, and it's okay. So you use kindness on yourself, but then you can also honestly say, I would like to change a little bit. And it's not that we don't always need to change. You are good as you are, but maybe you want to, because how you live is not so consistent with who you really are. And that's where lots of, I would say, problems come from, that we aren't living true to ourselves.
It's a fantastic answer.
You're currently in Switzerland and you've done a lot of traveling in your life. Do you see specific differences in cultures where certain cultures may be more likely to accept this kind of Stoicism mindset than others? And if so, can you just share what your perception of that is like?
I find there are people that are naturally living in this way, and there are probably certain places in the world where there's more people who are more natural Stoics, if you want to call them like that are, people who are accepting what is and are happy with life, no matter if it's raining or the sun is shining, and no matter if they have something to eat or not even. So I would say, yes, there are cultural differences, and it probably has also to do with a certain wealth, because if you are just living to survive, if you need to survive because you don't have a lot of food, you don't have lots of money or money at all, like in so many countries in the world, you have different problems there. You won't find depressed people there, even though they don't have much, because they don't get there to think like, what should I do with my life? Because maybe they don't have all these choices. And so, which doesn't mean, we should be impoverished and we will be natural Stoics. I just think this is the natural way for it to come by, that if you don't have a lot, or at least that's what I've observed in Latin American countries, but also Southeast Asian countries, that people don't have a lot, but they seem to be good. They drive to work, take 4 buses, it takes 2 hours or 3 hours. They go to the city and they work all day, and then they drive with these 4 buses back home and do this 6 times a week. And Sunday they drink a couple of beers and, enjoy their free time with friends, and they're really well and they don't complain. And yeah, they are well. But, with life, there's probably reasons why this is so. And so they don't get even more problems because they need to survive. And you can also observe lots of injustice, in the system we're living in, that, you and me, we're really privileged. Fortunately, we have so many choices, and we can, the money we earn here has so much more worth than the money they earn in other countries. So they can never, ever earn so much money where they live. So I would say I've observed this, but to make the point, I'd like to say that still we need to be at some place where it's not only about survival, like in many Western countries where we have the luxury of, like a FIRE movement to retire early, or where we can work and have a free time because we earn enough money in less hours so we can have more free time. In these cultures, we want to find ways to be well despite all the luxury, because that's the paradox here, is that people in poorer countries sometimes seem to be better off when it comes to their well-being. That's not the solution, right? Because we want to be freer without time. So we want to find ways and make ways to be really well despite having this luxury, because there's some connection there, that we have too many choices and we can think too much about, I want to be happy and what should I do and how do I spend my days. But we can get depressed or have anxiety issues or other problems here, but we want to move beyond that. So we want to be free, and we want to be really well and happy and flourishing. And that's a long answer to say that, yes, I've observed this, that some people are more natural Stoics, and in some cultures it's more natural, but it's probably also survival skill, actually, to not be bothered about too many things, because they have the real problems basically, and they won't be bothered about waiting 2 hours somewhere, or if it's raining, or if they have dirty shoes, or if the boss is screaming at them. So because they need their energy for other things, for survival.
Yeah, I think all of that is so spot on. And so David and I are American. I'm guessing most of our listeners are American, and we do just have an unbelievable level of abundance here. And American grocery stores, right? You walk in and just the cereal aisle alone is an entire aisle, and you have hundreds of choices of what kind of cereal to take home with you. I mean, the level of just choices and luxury that we have available to us here, very, very high. And as you're pointing out, Jonas, I think it can paradoxically lead to feeling overwhelmed and feeling unhappy and feeling like we have to keep up with this intense pace of just constant consumption and impressing others with our level of consumption. I'm curious if you can offer any words of wisdom to those of us who are embedded in that culture of how to lower that level of stress that we have being surrounded by some of that social pressure, and how to maybe feel more grateful for what we have, and instead of feeling pressure to keep up with the Joneses or pressure to live a certain way.
I mean, you can count your blessings. So rather than, looking for more and more, you can ask yourself, what's things I have, and how much would I desire these things if I didn't have them already? So that you turn it around rather than, desiring something else. You ask, how much would I desire the things that I already have? And these can be material things that I'm grateful to have this black mug here. Or, you have some favorite things, material things maybe, or favorite jumper or shoes or cushion or whatever, or laptop, computer, all these things that we use on a daily basis. But you can take it even further and say that, okay, I'm grateful actually for my health. I have 2 healthy legs that I can walk, So you probably couldn't buy this, and you would never ever give it away if you can choose. So it makes you more grateful. And the Stoics, they would say, don't take life for granted. Maybe you take it as granted, as a gift. Really, here you have this gift of life, and use it well and appreciate it every day. And I would say, so count your blessings here would be one Stoic practice you can apply if you think you need to keep up with the Joneses and need to buy new things, that you count your own blessings. And if you make it to the way that you are grateful to have, you have your hand, a healthy hand that you can use and grab things. It's amazing, right? You would never give this away if you could choose, not for any money in the world. And this can change everything. This just a tiny change in perspective. And then you're happy to have a healthy hand, right? Or eyes, or you have a nose and a tongue that you can speak. And yeah, it's amazing. And so, yeah, and there, I would say, many possible ways that you can look at situations in a different way to change perspective and find a way that's more valuable and more supportive of certain values. So you don't go and buy things that you just buy to impress others, and it's not really worthwhile for you.
Jonas, I know that meditations, you hear about meditations in Stoic philosophy, and you just sort of, I think going through a list of things that you're grateful for is a sort of a meditation. It's probably more auditory, more base level. But how can somebody listening to this, or me, once I get done with this call and I say, okay, I'm inspired now, Jonas has inspired me, I want to meditate. What is a basic meditation that anybody can do to take those first few steps to getting control of their emotions, as well as shift that perspective that you were just mentioning?
Well, you want to make time for yourself, right? So, and then so classic meditation would be a seated meditation. I find it's not something the Stoics did. They're just sitting still and observing their thoughts. The Stoics, they used self-reflection. They would sit down and write and, ask these questions. What do I value? What am I grateful for? Who am I really? And why do I want to live? And what's important in my life? And these questions. And then you can ask yourself a lot of questions that would come from the Stoics. So, one idea that comes to mind is that the idea of acceptance, basically. So the Stoics say there's these things that are beyond your control, and you want to focus on what's within your control. And they say you want to accept these external situations. And that's obviously not always easy, because sometimes terrible things happen and really sad things happen. And so there's acceptance versus resistance, maybe, or rejection. And this, I have this story I have really close to my heart. It's not exactly from the Stoics, but it's a story of the Chinese farmer. And I'm just going to tell you the story. Maybe you've heard it before. So once upon a time, there was a Chinese farmer, and he lost a horse. It ran away. So all the neighbors came to the farmer and said, "Oh, that's terrible, isn't it?" And the farmer said, "Maybe." The next day, the farmer's horse came back and brought 7 wild horses with it. So all the neighbors came to the farmer and said, "Oof, that's excellent, isn't it? Wonderful." And he said, "Maybe." The next day, the farmer's son tried to tame one of the wild horses, and he fell off the horse and broke a leg. Again, all the neighbors came to the farmer and said, "Oh, that's terrible, isn't it?" And he said, "Maybe." The next day, conscription officers of the Chinese army came looking to recruit young men for the army, and they rejected the farmer's son because he had a broken leg. Now again, all the neighbors came to the farm and said, "Oh, that's wonderful, isn't it?" And he said, "Maybe." And so I really like this story because it also shifts your perspective, because you don't really know whether something is good or bad because you don't know the future. Life is more complex than we know or we will ever understand. So yeah, I like this, perspective that shifts, that something's good, something's bad, this is terrible, this is great. We much more go into this attitude of maybe, it's okay. I can accept it. Of course, I didn't choose it. It's a little bit annoying, but it's going to be fine. And maybe even it's going to turn out to be something valuable. So this story is really close to my heart, and it's not the way the Stoics told it, but it's a very Stoic idea in my perspective that life happens, and it's good that it happens, and it will give you, the challenges that you need in order to grow, because, like the trees outside that will grow strong, they need all the challenges, and they will embrace all the seasons in order to grow strong and beautiful, so they can, bear fruit and be a gift to the ecosystem around them. And we too, we can let life happen as it happens, and sometimes it's more pleasurable than other times, and sometimes it's really annoying, and we don't really see how this should be fun. But I find that if we really want, we will always find a silver lining somewhere, and we can always at least see something as a challenge for you to grow, even if it's really difficult. So yeah, there's much to learn from the Stoics, and I would say we each have it within us, the potential to find opportunity in difficulty and in challenge. You just ask yourself, sit with yourself, and if you breathe calmly and maybe have a pen and paper ready, ask yourself some questions, and I'm sure you will find some answers.
So many nuggets of gold in there. That was a powerful story. Yeah, I love that, Jonas. That's great.
Jonas, you don't get very far Googling stuff about Stoicism before you start seeing some really awesome quotes. And you've got a number of quotes listed in your book, of which you gifted me a number of years ago. I think you published it in 2019, I think.
Yes.
And I got one of these in the mail shortly after because you helped me with philology, one of the Stoicism lesson in philology. So I'm very grateful for that. And it's funny how we're finally meeting face to face after all these years. And I have one of your quotes now that is now going to be one of my favorite quotes is, "Be well despite all the luxury." That's something I wrote down and put in quotes because that just caught me when you said it. There's so much behind it, especially in a modern society. But what are some of your favorite quotes?
Well, most basic one that teaches philosophy really well is from Marcus Aurelius, that goes, let me think. "If it's not right, do not do it. If it's not true, do not say it." So for this, it's very simple, but there's a lot in it. And obviously it requires a lot of mindfulness in the present moment to not do or say things that we don't really want to do or say. So that's one quote I like.
And the very next level would be, "And if it's true, sometimes you probably still shouldn't say it." So
yes.
You can get a lot of trouble sometimes speaking the truth. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you want to be considerate with speaking the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the art there. Yeah. It's something I'm still learning,
What would be another quote that you enjoy?
So one that I find important is that if you didn't learn these things in order to demonstrate them in practice, what did you learn them for? That's from Stoic teacher Epictetus. And it's always a good reminder because, and I fell into this trap too when I was reading loads of books that, so you feel like I'm learning a lot, but if I fail to put it into practice, I didn't really learn it, And I find that's true with almost everything. There's some things we can learn in theory and apply it maybe later on automatically, but with many things, we really need to apply it to truly learn it and understand it, because oftentimes things in practice look so much different than in theory, right? Because it's it's a whole other story. And that's the challenge always. So that's one of the quotes I like a lot. And one, yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to pull it off out of the heart, but seek not for events to happen as you wish, but rather wish for them to happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly. Something among these lines that, yeah, go with life, as it comes. Maybe it's good, it's bad, but yeah, wish for the things that happen. It's good as they happen, and you will work with these things rather than always wishing life to be different. I find that people will, even in really beautiful moments, they will always say, this would be perfect if such and such would also, if the sun would be shining or something else. So I really try to not find or not search for anything that would make the situation better, because it will never be perfect if we keep on, searching for things that will make a situation perfect or better. So I try to say, this is perfect and I want to be here and breathe calmly and be present, and that's perfect. There's no better moment than this one, and it's not going to be better if the sun were shining or if it would be raining or whatever.
I was thinking as you were talking about the quote about, why did you learn these things if not to put them into action? And it reminds me of a quote I heard a long time ago about the man who chooses not to read has no advantage over the man who does not know how. And it, I think, is maybe a helpful call to action to, use the gifts that you have. Yeah, again, not get sucked into this sort of frenetically paced world of shiny new objects that are constantly dangling in our faces all day, every day, certainly in our culture here. So yeah, I love those thoughts a lot. I think that's great.
Thank you.
Jonas, in your own journey, you have not done this alone. I have an identical twin brother, and I don't know what it feels like to not have an identical twin brother and have gone through my life with him, but you have Niles. Yeah. Can you just talk for a few minutes on what that relationship is like, what you've been through together, and what that means to you?
Sure. So Niels, actually is his name, Niels. Niels is one of my brothers. So we are 4 brothers, actually. A tremendous gift to our mother, 4 brothers. And so Niels is one of my brothers, and we're the 2 middle ones. And almost 10 years ago, we decided, we tried to build our own business and try to be self-employed. And we shared loads of interests. I would say both of us had been reading a lot of books, and we're always interested in learning, about many things. First, it was nutrition and, biohacking, eat, move, sleep, breathe, all these things we were really interested in. And we shared this interest, and we talked a lot about these things. And when we decided to try to, build a business, we moved together. And so we were able to cook together and have our nutrition. So we tried to do ketogenic diet for a long time, for example, and lots of fasting and also, just reading books. And interestingly, I find that we haven't read the same books. There's only a few books we've both read, but usually I read, I just chose different books than he did. He's more, into science books, and I'm more into other books. But we would always teach each other about the things that we learned in the book. So I don't know, for example, many years ago, he learned about barefoot shoes and why it's a good idea to wear barefoot shoes. And so he read 2 or 3 books about barefoot shoes, and he was really fascinated, and he bought a pair of barefoot shoes. And I just asked him, hey, so what's it with these barefoot shoes? And he told me, it's really healthy for your feet, and it's good for these and these reasons. And before, if you start wearing barefoot shoes, you must be careful for these and these reasons, and maybe you want to do this and that. And then I said, oh, great, I'm going to get a pair of barefoot shoes. And it was, it was with many things. It was that so I learned something from a couple of books, and I just taught him the things that I put into practice, or most important things, and he did the same with me. So we were always able to almost learn double about a couple of things. But again, as I said before, if I failed with many things, putting them into practice, and forgot loads of stuff, but that's fine. So Yeah, so that's one of my brothers, Niels. He recently published his book, Mastering Flow, a new book. And I'm really happy for him because it was a really long, tough project. So, and yeah, it's we have been supporting each other and reading each other's stuff and, been trying to be here for each other. But also we live together, we work together, and we often spend our free time together. There were also certain challenges, I would say, but yeah, because we haven't been working very closely lately, because we haven't been living together and we've each had our own projects. When I look back at the time we were so close, living together and working together and spending so much time with each other, I'm really happy actually, because yeah, it was a beautiful time. And, I'm tremendously grateful to have him as a brother and as a friend, and also my other brothers. It was always the and Jays, so Niels and Jonas. And so I thought maybe it could have been challenging for the other brothers, but I think it wasn't. We were always good, the four of us, and we love spending time with each other. We recently went playing to an escape room and playing paddle. I don't know if you know this. So playing paddle is...
Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with escape rooms.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was lots of fun, and we're fortunate to have really good relationships. And I think because it's important to each one of us so we take care of each other and are considerate of each other's needs and also desires and everything. So yeah, it's wonderful. It's been a wonderful experience working with him, and hopefully also in the future. And I don't have an identical twin brother. And Niels and I certainly are different, but I also think it's beautiful to be different and appreciate each other's uniqueness. And because it would be boring if we were all the same, right? So yeah, beautiful. I'm really grateful to have a wonderful family.
Jonas, thank you so much for giving us that general overview of Stoicism as a philosophy. I feel like it's been a part of my life for a number of years, but yet I still rarely find anybody that's even heard of it. But it's so useful as just a baseline way to frame things in your mind that helps you get through tough times. Thank you for always being supportive. Thank you very much for being here on this episode. And thanks for coming back next time, where we are discussing Stoic money lessons.
Perfect. I'm looking forward to coming back.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that conversation as well. So everybody make sure to check out the next episode with Jonas here. But I think you've just dropped pearls of wisdom all over the place today, Jonas. So thank you so very much. I've loved this conversation and got so much out of it.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you next episode.